It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
If you have children who do something awesome, or you have children that you love, give them a hug, give them a high five, be as familiar with them as you want. Not going to do any damage at all.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
How cool is it having teenagers? Don't you just love them? Totally different set of problems, totally different set of stresses and all that sort of stuff. But teenagers, actually, I'm even watching our little Emily, who's 8.5 years old now, as she's puzzling through how humour works. She's trying out all these different jokes. And
making them up all along the way.
Doing the very best that she can to get a laugh out of us. But as the kids get older, the way that you interact, the quality of the conversation, the humour, the delight, it all shifts. And I feel like just recently we've started to move into this brand new phase of life with 3 adult kids, 3 kids finish school, another 2 that are in high school. It just kind of feels fun to be around the kids. We can sit around the dining table and talk or laugh or play games, and it's a different kind of fun.
If you haven't played the game, Cover Your Assets.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
It's so much fun.
Highly recommend it.
I think that's our favourite at the moment.
Yeah, our big girl brought it home with her from one of her visits, and
heaps of fun.
Emily, 8 years old, and she has got this game down pat.
So good, so good.
Yeah.
This is our This Week in Parenting podcast. I need to let you know we've got 2 cracking news stories to talk about in a sec, but you had a funny interaction with our 18-year-old just the other day.
So the other day you brought home some random stranger. We've never met him before. He's visiting from the States.
Yeah.
And invited him over for lunch.
So here's the thing, right? So when I travel, sometimes I've got a lot of work to do and I don't want to be bothered by anyone. But every now and again, especially if I'm traveling across a weekend, it's just nice to connect with people. So I bumped into this guy, said, hey, where are you from? He's from St. Louis, Missouri. And I said, oh, yeah, we've traveled in the States a little bit, been through Missouri, haven't spent much time there, but great spot. You're here for a conference. What have you got on this weekend? He said, nothing. I'm in my hotel room and it's raining. I said, well, why don't you come over to our place for a barbecue? Come and have some lunch. And he's like, really? So he came over, Aaron, hanging out with us. And he says, actually, I need some help at the conference. I don't suppose any of your daughters would would they be available to earn some money at this conference at the stand that I'm operating? And so our 18-year-old daughter picked up the gig, got a couple of days of work.
So the morning of, she's come out to me and she's gone, Mum, I have to wear something that's business casual. And I've looked at her.
This kid is not a business casual kind of kid.
This is beach bum. Beach bum 18-year-old. She just loves being down at the beach in her surfy, big, baggy T-shirts.
Yeah.
And to be honest, none of us really have anything that would kind of fit that genre at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, you like your linen stuff, and she's got a big sister who's not living at home and another big sister who works in childcare. She doesn't have business clothing.
So there was literally in the house 1 pair of pants that I thought might work.
Yep.
And she's gone through outfit after outfit. She's coming out and she's getting slightly better. This is just so not her area at all. And she keeps coming out and I'm like, no, Ella, that's not going to work. And I'm like, you need to find those pants. So she finds the pants and she puts them on. I said, perfect. Now we just got to try and find a shirt. Well, she's throwing on shirts left, right and centre and nothing is working. I've raided her sister's cupboard and there is literally in the house 1 shirt that might work. She puts it on. She says, I can't do it. She said, I won't wear it.
I can't do it.
So anyway, I've gone off to hang the washing. She's come back and she's like, there's nothing. I can't wear anything. I said, you just need to wear that shirt. Can I see it on you? She said, you just want me to look like a 30-year-old woman. That's what it is, isn't it? 30 years old. She put it on. I took one look at her. I said, no, that's casual business. That's perfect.
Yeah, and she's thinking, I look like a grandma.
She's like, if I had have known this is what I was going to have to wear to do this job, I would have said no.
And of course, she came back from the conference and was like, best job ever. Can't believe it. That was so good.
She said, I loved it.
It's time for This Week in Parenting. I love this podcast episode. We only do it once a month, so it really should be this month in parenting. We could do it weekly, but I sort of just scour the internet, find crazy stories about parents doing weird stuff, and we need to talk about it. So the first one that I want to share with you is there's a psychologist. He's been around for a very, very long time. His name is Dr. John Rosemond. He's written a bunch of books, and he's just this really provocative, old school kind of guy. And here's what he has written in the last week. You shouldn't high-five children because they're not our equals, and they'll probably start disobeying you if you do. The high five is a gesture of familiarity to be exchanged only between equals. I love this. In the column that he wrote, he explained how he refused to high five his grandson when he was 5 years old, much to his adult son's confusion, adding that respect for adults is important for a child's character development and the high five is not compatible with respect. I love this. Check out, this is a direct quote. The child who is allowed to high five an adult has tacit permission to talk to said adult as if they are peers. Do not wonder why, if you high five your child, he often talks to you as if you are his equal, he wrote. And then he concluded with, the more adults and children commingle as if they are equals, the more problematic become their relationships. Why should a child obey an adult who high fives him? And make no mistake, the happiest kids are also the most obedient. The research says so, as does one's common sense. He sort of writes like he's in the 1800s, I think. But it's,
wow.
I love this. I love this. My pro tip, high five as many kids as you possibly can, because I don't think it's actually going to hurt anyone in the long run.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
I'm speechless.
This is one of the weirdest things that I've ever read in the world of parenting. But this guy, he's known for doing these kinds of things. He's really hardcore, really old school, one of those strictly parenting kind of guys. And I don't know. I mean, I hear a story like that and I think, unfortunately, there are people who will listen to this guy and there's just no research. There's no research to support this. I mean, involvement and warmth and nurture. If you've got a kiddo who's struggling with something and they achieve it, give them a high five, give them a hug.
I think about the people who've been most influential in my life, especially as a child, whether it be a teacher, like a family friend. They haven't been the people who've treated me like a subordinate. They've treated me like, in some ways, like I was equal to them, that I was human and deserved, the same rights as they did.
I feel like
I'm really struggling to find words. I'm blown away that this has even been published.
I feel like I should give you a high five after that comment, and I feel safely able to do it because you're not one of my children. So high five, Kylie. Yeah. So that's my first story in this week in parenting. If you have children who do something awesome, or you have children that you love, give them a hug, give them a high five, be as familiar with them as you want. Not going to do any damage at all. I just want to undo the damage that the John Rosemans of the world are doing by telling us not to high five kids.
His statement about the happiest kids are the most obedient kids. And I even refute that.
Yeah.
While ever our children are being obedient, where's the learning coming from?
Or where's their voice?
Like
kids will be happy if they're obedient. There's no doubt. But the reasons for their obedience
that
matter.
Internal motivation as opposed to the extrinsic motivation that they receive in order to be obedient.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a doozy to start the week off with.
I got a friend who has a collection of John Rosemond quotes from his column. He says stuff like this all the time. It's just to crack up. And I wanted to highlight, love your kids, nurture your kids, ignore people who say dumb things like that. There's no research evidence to support it at all. It's just annoying. A second piece of research, I love this. Now, this is not the doctor's desk, but I am going to talk about research, not news, because it's research news. It's a bit both. Don't roll your eyes at me. It's really funny. You're going to love this. In news that may not surprise some parents, parents of boys age faster than parents of girls. This is why we look so good. 6 daughters. Which is so funny because I think girls are so hard, such hard work compared to boys. I don't know what's going on here. New study by researchers at Columbia University in New York and Charles University in Prague found parents with at least one son showed a faster rate of cognitive decline compared to those with daughters. Oh, that's what it is. See, the girls keep you on your toes. That's what it is.
Yeah, I was just thinking about all of the risk-taking that boys will take.
Well, so they're not measuring grey hair. They're not saying you look older. They're saying that's a cognitive decline issue. So published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research, researchers assessed 13,222 parents aged 50 and above, asking them to complete a series of tasks like memory recall, maths, and counting backwards. Of those assessed, more than 80% had at least one son, and 61.6% of respondents were women. Tests were conducted every 2 years over an 18-year period.
Wow.
And the results weren't great news for those with sons, especially multiple sons. Similar results were seen in both male and female participants. And as the researchers adjusted results for any socioeconomic factors, they found that the child's gender played a role in the decline. Parents, they said, of at least one son had a faster rate of cognitive decline in comparison to parents without any son. Our results also suggest that cognitive decline was faster among parents of multiple sons compared to parents with only daughters.
I've heard that you use it or you lose it.
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether or not the fact that, generally speaking, girls include you in their life a lot more, and you've got to deal with so much more emotion than boys in general. And as a result, you're using all of those cognitive processes so much more because of that involvement.
You don't have a psychology degree and you haven't seen this article. This is the first you've heard of it. But have a listen to what the researchers said to help to explain why it might be happening. See if you notice any similarities between your comments and theirs. The researcher who headed the study, Katrin Wolfova, said the results suggest the effects are due to socializing issues, not biological issues. Quote, daughters provide more social and emotional support.
I don't know if I'd use the word support.
You didn't use the word support, but you were talking about social and emotional stimulation, I guess, social and emotional taxing work. They're requiring more of you socially and emotionally. But they've said daughters provide more social and emotional support than sons and often become informal caregivers. So you've come at it from a different angle. I tend to agree with yours, but I haven't gone through the whole thing.
I'm watching, obviously, as our eldest daughter, she's left home now, and she is very much that emotional and social support for me now. And I can see that happening as the kids get older. But in those early stages, definitely it's not supportive.
Yeah. So
we're doing the support. It
doesn't say anything about whether you look. It doesn't say anything about whether you look younger or older, but I'm going to take it anyway and run with it and say,
So all those years everybody said I was missing out on something because I didn't have sons.
Mm-hmm.
I can just water off a duck's back.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the last article that I want to talk about briefly is one that's in The Atlantic. The Atlantic is one of the best publications in the world. I love reading their articles often, not always, but often. And this one says, we long for the most difficult days of parenthood. Older parents are always telling parents of young children to cherish every second. It will be gone in a flash. But it's very difficult advice to follow in the thick of it. And I just thought, what a great story, what a great reminder, because just as we've been doing the podcast in the last week or so, we've had a couple of conversations where we've talked about how awesome it is to have older kids and how the conversations change and the amount of freedom that we have changes. There's so many really exciting changes that occur once you've got older children. But there is something so special about having toddlers that are crawling around on the floor and that you can grab their feet and pull them back while they're wearing their little jumpsuits and all that kind of stuff. Going to the grocery store with little kids is not nearly as fun as it is with big kids. Like little kids in the shops are literally the worst. But there's something about that thing. Do you ever find yourself looking at friends and saying, I enjoy having those little kids because they will grow up and it's just not the same anymore?
I may have said it once or twice, but I remember so many people saying it to me and it just felt so dismissive of what I was experiencing at the time. So I don't tend to say it as much.
Okay, well,
I think it.
The article, and we'll link to it in the show notes, the article was in The Atlantic and it's just a beautiful reminder of even when you're in the thick of it, if we can stop and smell the roses, so to speak, something magic about parenting. And I think that's really, there's a lesson in that for all of us. And that is that parenting is kind of what we make it in a lot of ways. You might have a child that's got additional needs. You might have a whole lot of current economic pressure because it's hard to find a place to rent or the mortgage has gone up and now you're worried about whether or not you can continue to pay the bills. Or it could be that there's learning difficulties or there's problems at school. There's teething issues. You're not sleeping through the night. All that stuff. But it happens at every age.
But whether you've got children or not, there's challenge. That's part of life. That's, you don't really feel like you're living unless there's some give and take, and the learning takes place in the hard.
Precisely. In fact, as I consider the hard things we've been through recently with our kids, I think that it's made me a better parent. Like, I feel like I'm seeing parenting differently in the last few weeks to how I've ever seen it. I'm seeing things now that I've never seen before. I feel like my parenting is going to a whole new level just in the last few weeks because of the hard things that we've experienced.
For the last 23 years.
Well, yes, absolutely. But it's 23 years of it and counting. We've still got at least another 10 to go.
What do you mean? That we don't have another 10 years? This is going to go forever.
Well, 10 years of kids being in our house dependent on us, like that kind of thing.
Well, then the grandkids come and...
Well, I know, but we can send them away. But the whole This Week in Parenting, I just wanted to highlight this article and send people to it to read it. I think it's a beautiful article. It's a great reminder that there will always be challenge and trial. Savor every stage. There is something, though, about kids in the early stages of childhood that you just want to cherish, even when it's hard. Just cherish it. That's it. That's our This Week in Parenting. Not quite as explosive as the last one, but a great conversation about high-fiving. Really fascinating idea that you age more if you have boys than girls. And can we just enjoy parenting? Because parenting, it's where we find abundance in life. That's it.
I love it.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon for Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. We so appreciate that you listen to the podcast. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If you're loving the podcast, in fact, even if you're not loving it, can you give us a 5-star review anyway? just jump onto wherever you listen, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Just click the button that says reviews and tap the 5 stars and maybe say 1 or 2 sentences about how we've been helpful. It helps other people to find out about the podcast to make their family happier. That's why we're asking. It's not about our egos. It's about helping other people to find the podcast. Thank you again for choosing to listen to us when you could do so many other things. We really do hope that it makes a difference in your life. For more information about making your family happier, please visit us for a whole lot of resources at happyfamilies.com.au.